judge left the court looking deeply disgusted, but the Snark, though a little aghast, as a lawyer to whom the defense was entrusted, went bellowing on to the last. Thus the barrister dreamed, while the bellowing seemed to grow every moment more clear, till he woke to the knell of a furious bell, which the bellman rang close at his ear. Fit the set, the banker's fate. They sought it with thimbles, they sought it with care, they pursued it with forks and hope. They threatened its life with a railway share. They charmed it with smiles and soap. And the banker, inspired with a courage so new it was a matter for general remark, rushed madly ahead and was lost to their view in his zeal to discover the Snark. But while he was seeking, with thimbles and care, a bandersnatch swiftly drew nigh and grabbed at the banker, who shrieked in despair, for he knew it was useless to fly. He offered large discount, he offered a check, drawn to bearer for £7.10. But the bandersnatch merely extended its neck and grabbed at the banker again. Without rest or pause, while those fruminous jaws went savagely snapping around, he skipped and he hopped, and he floundered and flopped, till fainting he fell to the ground. The bandersnatch fled as the others appeared, led on by that fear-stricken yell. And the bellman remarked, "It's just as I feared," and sullenly tingled his bell. He was black in the face, and scarcely could trace the least likeness to what he had been, while so great was his fright that his waistcoat turned white. A wonderful thing to be seen. To the horror of all who were present that day, he uprose in full evening dress, and with senseless grimaces endeavoured to say what his tongue could no longer express. Down he sank in a chair, ran his hands through his hair, and chanted in mimsiest tones words whose utter inanity proved his insanity, while he rattled a couple of bones. "Leave him to his fate, it's getting so late," the bellman exclaimed in affright. "We have lost half the day. Any further delay, we shan't catch a Snark before night." Fit the eighth, the banner. They sought it with thimbles, they sought it with care, they pursued it with forks and hope, they threatened its life with a railway share, they charmed it with smiles and soap. They shuddered to think the chase might fail, and the beaver, excited at last, went bounding along on the tip of its tail, for the daylight was nearly past. "There is Thingamabob shouting," the bellman said. "You're shouting like mad on the ark. He's waving his hands, he's wagging his head. He has certainly found a Snark." They gazed in delight, while the butcher exclaimed, "He were always a desperate wag." They beheld him, their baker, their hero, unnamed, on the top of a neighbouring crag, erect and sublime for one moment of time. In the next, that wild figure they saw, as if stung by a spasm, plunge into a chasm, while they waited and listened in awe. "It's a Snark!" thus a sound first came to their ears, and seemed almost too good to be true. Then followed a torrent of laughter and cheers, then the ominous words, "It's a boo!" Then silence. Some fancied they heard in the air a weary and wandering sigh that sounded like "Jum," but the others declare it was only a breeze that went by. They hunted till darkness came on, but they found not a button or feather or mark by which they could tell they stood on the ground where the baker had met with the Snark. In the midst of the word he was trying to say, in the midst of his laughter and glee, he had softly and suddenly vanished away. For the Snark was a boo-john, you see. want a copy of that tape, Disney have recorded quite recently. We've been doing it some months ago, and I'll give you the address if you want to write for a copy, because I'm sure they'd be delighted to send you one. Do we have any children present? Oh. I don't want to go to the loo by any chance. What I would like to do now, I was recording for Disney. I was recently recording the child narration for Pocahontas, and which I believe the film has been something of a success. And as I was doing it, I got to a piece where Pocahontas was showing John Smith hers, and he was showing her him, and I suddenly went, I got finished giggling. And in this very serious atmosphere, this sound studio, I just couldn't control it any longer. And I tried, and of course and all these angry faces, wasting all this time in the studio, all these faces behind the glass, the more peeved they got, the more... I would like to play it to you now. There are a couple of very naughty words in it, and I get exasperated, but I think you may find it amusing. This is my own machine, so I have no idea how it works. Right then. Now bear in mind the kind of atmosphere, the seriousness there is in the studio. I hope you will all hear it. I'll turn it up really loud when we get to it. Okay. Wave your hand if you can't hear it. You can't hear anything. You're all there. You sure you got the right tape for it? You want to be quiet. Oh, you mean you didn't wind it? I'm so sorry. Good job. Sorry about this, man. Do talk amongst yourselves. You can do that. I always make a point of these poetry readings of trying to read some of my favorite poets, Lynette Combs. And unfortunately, I haven't got anything here. Combs, did I say Combs? Can I read this one? I've only just been given it from Lynette, but I do like it. It's called Father Figure. It has given me some food for thought, this thing we're all a part of, the splendid so-called fantasy, and what has been the start of. And sometimes still I wonder at the power of your passion, and what it is that draws us all together in this fashion. It goes beyond the scope of an outsider's first impression, a league of dreamers caught up in a fairy tale obsession. The truth beyond the knowledge of the folk who rise above it is that we choose to be a part of this because we love it. The fairy tale tells us of a bond that never will be broken,